Hey writers, I thought I'd give you a demonstration of how to use ProWritingAid to edit any document. I'm in Microsoft Word right now, and I've actually pulled up one of the student interview report models that I sent you all when I responded to your drafts so that you had an example to follow. So I've got this open and you all have access to it if you ever want to refer to it. And you can see up here in Word that I have the ProWritingAid ribbon activated. This is how I recommend that you use ProWritingAid directly into Word. It makes things so much easier, saves all of your updates, and you keep everything in the same file. And so to activate ProWritingAid, I'm going to go all the way over here to the left, and I'm going to click this button that says Start Real Time. What that's going to do is it's going to activate ProWritingAid, and you can see that there are two columns that appear here. There's an improvements column, and then there's a goals column, and then you can see here that your document underlines in all of these different color squigglies. Just to give you a quick summary, the yellow is grammatical issues, the red is spelling, style is going to be blue, and then finally you're going to have passive voice in purple. This is just a visual guide to help you, and if you look over here in improvements you can see that all of the possible suggestions are color coded, but it's really nice to scroll through and you can get kind of a quick and dirty lowdown of maybe where most of your issues lie. And you can see here that there's a lot of blue, which means style, and then some yellow, so that's going to be grammatical. That's helpful information to have when you're approaching any revision. But before you do that, one of the benefits and the features of ProWritingAid is that ProWritingAid compares your writing to data or writing that's similar in style. So you can see here that the default is general academic, but what I'd like you to do is click this drop down menu and then go over to business, and then if you scroll all the way down you can see report, because you all are doing a student interview report in a professional writing course. So this is going to be much more reflective of this particular document. And you'll notice that these improvements in your goals were at 59% in improvements and 69% in goals. Depending on the document type that you select, that's actually going to affect the improvements and goals, because again, ProWritingAid is pulling from specifically business reports, and there are different stylistic and grammatical conventions to those than just general academic writing. So if I select report here, you'll notice that once it goes through the checking, I'm now to 57 and 76. So I've slightly changed because I've changed my document type. You can still see here I've got the different colored squiggly lines, but if you click the goals column here, you're going to begin to see a little bit more drilled down analysis of the writing. So first of all, it's saying that my grammar, spelling, and style is in the orange or the yellow zone, which means that there's some improvements that can be made. But you can also see that in terms of style, business jargon, sentence length, inclusive language, sentence variety, passive voice, and weak adverbs, I'm in the green here. Now that doesn't mean that these areas can't be improved, but what ProWritingAid is saying is I'm within the range of all of the other business reports that they have in their data set to show that my writing is reflective of those. But then you can see here that I've got some complex paragraphs that might need to be fixed, and then what I have is glue index. That has to do with making your writing clearer, and that has to do with kind of reducing what's called the glue or the clutter in some of your sentences. So that's just kind of an overview of what's in these improvements and in these goals. What I'm recommending that you start doing is start with the improvements, and you can see here that this first comment is underlined in yellow or orange, and that's going to be grammatical. And if you go over here, it's saying this is a readability issue. The purpose of this document is maybe a little too wordy, but what it's suggesting that I change it to is this document gives. Now if I went ahead and accepted that, it's certainly going to shorten it and say this document gives representation, but that just doesn't sound good, and it doesn't certainly sound like me. It doesn't sound like something I would say. And so this is where, as the human editor, you really need to make the decision about what suggestions you want to accept and what you want to reject. So maybe this is a little bit wordy, and I can think about readability, but maybe a better revision would be something like, in this report, I describe, and then say here, an underrepresented major at UNT. Or in this report, I describe my interview with Larry Metz, an integrative studies major at UNT. And then I could say something like, this is an underrepresented major, but I wanted to gather information to help further students. So what you can see there is, while I didn't take that first suggestion, it did prime me to think, well, maybe I could make this a little bit better and a little bit more readable. And as a result, I actually ended up creating 2 sentences instead of just one really long sentence. And especially when you're beginning a report, you want to make sure that you have nice comprehensible sentences. So again, you can go through these one by one. You can see here, there's certain words that perhaps could be reduced down, and you'll notice that as you accept these different changes, your improvements goes up. So I've now gone up to 61. Now remember, you do not need to accept every single suggestion that ProWritingAid does. It's an excellent tool. It can show you a lot of really interesting things about your writing, but it's not a human. It's a computer. And at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you sound like you. And I guarantee you that there are certain tools in ProWritingAid where you can edit and edit and edit and edit a sentence to the point where it doesn't even sound like you. That's not effective communication. You still want to sound like you, and you still want to retain your voice. So in addition to going through these improvements and goals and trying to improve those things, you also have access to a whole host of different reports up here, some of which I want you to play around with. Let me show you, some of my favorites. I love the glue or the sticky sentences report. What this is going to do is it's going to go through your entire report, and it's going to say, overall, I don't actually have really sticky sentences, but I do have 5 sentences that could be cleaned up a little bit to be more readable. And if I click on my semi-sticky sentences, you can see here that the first one is, many students come to college undecided on what majors they'd like to pursue, or are likely to feel as if their degree plan limits what they want to learn and explore in college. Well, maybe I decide that I can condense that particular thing, that sentence, down into 2, reduce it down to wordiness, and so I can go ahead and fix that sentence, and then you can keep running this sticky index, and gradually this 5 is going to go down to 4, down to 3, and you can see what your glue index is going to lower. That's just going to make your document more readable and comprehensible. Another feature that I like is this one about cliches, because what it can do is it can look for cliches within dialogue or outside. In your instance, within dialogue would be direct quotes from your interview subject. If you're quoting cliches, you obviously don't want to change the voice or what the interviewer said, but it might cause you to think, is that the best quote to include? Does it really say something powerful to my readers? But you can also see here that it identifies redundancies where perhaps I say it was outside of class. Well, that's redundant, so I can just say outside the classroom. And you can see here I've gradually started to make my document more comprehensible and more readable. So these are some of the features of ProWritingAid. As I said, you have access to this tool all semester long, and I want you to really focus on getting familiar with this tool for your student interview report, but I also hope this is something that you continue to use not only in this classroom for the rest of the semester, but in all of the writing that you do in all of your other classes. ProWritingAid will work in your web browser, so even if you're writing a discussion post or an email, it can be activated there. And I think you're going to find that it's not only going to improve your writing, but it's going to teach you a lot of things, and so that you remember them, and so you're less apt to make those specific issues that maybe you might be prone to do.